everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our power ranking of Christopher Nolan films. We really wanted to get those top 5 to you and not make you wait because you don't deserve that.
You deserve better.
So much better.
And we're going to give it to you.
That's why we're here. So at number 5, we picked The Prestige. This is one of the most underappreciated of Christopher Nolan's films. I would argue this is probably Nolan's best written script. It works very well on multiple levels as he juggles not just characters, but the mystery of the plot. You know, it's two warring magicians who are aspiring for fame and excellence to be the best at their craft, played excellently by not just Christian Bale, but in my opinion, the better performance even so. And again, it's not a competition, but Hugh Jackman's performance is something really, really great. And to see these characters come to life with excellent actors and a very, very well executed and structured script creates such wonderfully fantastical tension. And that's why I say fantastical, because it's not like other Nolan films. It's not like Insomnia, where the test of a serial killer, or the tension of Tenet, or even Dunkirk, where we're asking about, will they make it out alive? It's the whimsical nature of magic. It's about the idea of, can the audience figure out the trick? You know, as they're playing other magic tricks where you're like, how do they do that? You know, but then the all-encompassing question is, how does one simple trick that creates fame, fortune, and awe from the public, how is it done, and how does someone one-up the other? And it's this interesting dynamic.
It's wonderful because it's a smaller one. Like you talked about with Tenet and Inception, these are just big concepts. This one is about a magic trick. The magic trick itself is insane in the best way possible. I can't tell you how much I just love when the reveal Prestige hits. But like you said, it's just such a tight script. It just works so well for everything. There's not a lot of loose ends. And Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman, and also shout out to David Bowie's Tesla, who gives a great performance, and Michael Caine in the film. Everyone just puts their hand into such a great script, and for Nolan's twisty narratives that he loves to give, this one is one of the more fun ones.
This one actually doesn't hop around too much.
Exactly. It's not about weaving in all these time zones. It's just you want to encompass some crazy twist, some crazy antic, because Nolan's not going to tell just a straight narrative film. This one is just the best. This is, I would say, is probably the easiest accessible film of Nolan's entire filmography. When you're looking at a film that doesn't necessarily cater to comic books, doesn't necessarily cater to action, you know, this is a film of characters telling a unique story of something that always intrigues us. The mystery of our human minds is what makes the tension and the mystery of this film it grabs you, and it really all the way to the last frame, it grips us. One person claimed that they did guess the ending, and that was just so lame, you know. But I think that's how you hurt yourself to experience a film, where you're looking not just to figure out what it is, but you decide that alone is what takes you out of it. Everyone puts all the emphasis into it, and sometimes if you can figure out the twist or the reveal, it still doesn't take away from how good it's written. Because sometimes the best twists that are coming are easy to see. If it's just a random bad twist out of nowhere, it'd just be pointless. The script works in favor of it. It's all delivered so well. Like you said, right to the end, it is one of the best endings for a Nolan film, and I'm just so thankful as this film has gone on. It's aging so wonderfully. It's a film a lot of people I see talk about, like, oh man, you remember Prestige? I'm like, oh, I've loved it this whole time, you know. But people are finally warming back up to it once we're looking back, you know, because it's not the big spectacle film. You know, it has its minor spectacles, but it's clouded with all the other bigger films around it. When you have the Batman trilogy, and you have Inception, Prestige kind of gets lost in that. But people are coming back around, and I can't stress enough, I think everybody needs to look back on the Prestige. It's just such a good movie. Unquestionably. This is the first. We're finally going to have different movies. We have a divided opinion. We're separate people. I promise you that we are. Don't let the look fool you. My number 4, I have Memento. And Christopher Nolan's first big breakout film. Memento, I watched when I was very young, because I wanted to be that kid who was in the know. You know, I'm like, ooh, Memento is like this darker movie that every film lover knows. And I watched it, and of course I was rightfully confused because I was very young. And I revisit Memento years later, and I forgot that it was Christopher Nolan. Because as I watched it, it was the heyday of Christopher Nolan, you know, with Batman and everything. Memento does not feel like a Nolan film. It is his darkest film. It is a single character drama. Well, single character. It focuses on one man for most of the film. And when you look at him, I thought at first this might have been a Fincher film or something of that measure. It's gritty. It's dark. But it's absolutely captivating. And the idea of his playing with structure and time, this is the one that works the best. It doesn't need anything too crazy. It's one man with a mental problem trying to solve this mystery that is tattooed on his body. and it is absolutely captivating from start to finish. And it has one of the best reveals. Talking about Prestige and Memento, I feel bad because they're both right here. They're the babies of these actual, great spins and twists that Nolan has. Memento, I feel if I rewatch it again in another few years, I think it's just going to keep growing on me. It sits well with me. It just hasn't had that extra oomph. But I love everything about the film. I love Guy Pearce's performance. I just love, yet again, just how different it feels. It just doesn't feel like the new concoction of Nolan. And especially with how young he was. When you go to Following, which does feel like his stuff nowadays.
Yeah, they're movies right next to each other.
Yeah, they're right next to each other.
That's incredible.
Yeah. What an insanely great hop, to really show. Because Following's like, okay, cool, you can do something with a limited budget, but what can you really do with a real budget? And he knocked out of the park. And Guy Pearce, that's still, in my opinion, to this day, his best performance put on screen. That's saying something to Nolan. I'm like, look, you can direct characters. You can direct acting to a high level. Memento is probably the best showcase of that.
Number 4 for me is Interstellar. For those that never gave it the chance because sci-fi wasn't their cup of tea, or the structure of like something as much as like space travel just doesn't imbue to them. It is a wonderful spectacle in terms of scope, but also in humanization. It has some issues for me. Script writing is always something a little weaker, but this movie very much emphasizes the proper casting. Great actors elevate even the most mediocre of writing. And McConaughey, in the midst of his McConaissance, knocking it out of the park. Those whole couple years, Interstellar was such a culmination of bringing McConaughey to the table where he rightfully deserves to be, and him serving a dish that validates that. McConaughey's performance is wonderful. It's convicting. It's a father struggling to not just save the world, but save his daughter, save his son, and the future of mankind. And the reason it sits at number 4 and not a little higher really just comes to the fact that, 2001: A Space Odyssey. There it is. This movie is a love note to Kubrick, to Stanley Kubrick, and Interstellar just modernizes that story in such a wonderfully complex way. But yeah, Interstellar is what an embodiment of work, and for everything, with Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, obviously Michael Caine once again. I think the go-to actor in most of Christopher Nolan's films.
He's the glue of all the acting.
Yes.
Every time he shows up, you're like, oh, thank God Caine's here. He's always going to give the Michael Caine that you need.
It's the Caine universe, so to speak. It's the embodiment of the different lives he lives in the Nolan universe.
He's been through hell.
Exactly.
Things.
But yeah, and then coming up with, but addressing obviously McConaughey's character, Cobb's daughter, played as a young girl, but then growing, with time for the performance of Jessica Chastain, who's really, really great as an angry daughter, being left behind by her father. It works. It's such a good film. Maybe a little long for some people. It clocks in a little over 2.5 hours, but man, it's gorgeous to watch. And there's just an undeniable impact to that kind of a film and that kind of a style of telling stories. And I love it. We are back together. Our number 3 pick is Inception. I mean, yeah, from here on, like we said, it becomes a lot of praise with very little to criticize. This is Nolan's first big step into the recognition that we now not only afford him, but also he deserves. He did get an Oscar nomination for Memento, but Inception is really where he kind of came to the big boys table. It was the first film of his to be nominated for Best Picture. This becomes a conversation we're going to get to a little bit later. He did not get the director nomination, and I don't understand. The film is fascinating. What a concept. The idea of infiltrating dreams. We talk about in cinema, I think I mentioned in the Mayor when we started talking about the list and we got to Inception. When you really look at film in and of itself is the embodiment of what we dream. It's our imaginations come to life. Film is a dreamscape. And when you look at it like that, the concept of taking the construct of film and kind of breaking the walls down layer by layer. I can't get over how cool the concept is, and not just that, how well executed it is. Nolan is incredible at this film as a director. The film may have its issues with character, big surprise, but the bigger fascinating selling point is the story at large. The idea of infiltrating dreams and the layers upon layers, time stretching, the action sequences, the style, the scope of visuals. It's, man, wow. wow.
100% agree. And you're talking about how he wasn't nominated because it's just such a shame because this is the most Nolan-y of the Nolan films, but in a good way. In a good way. Because it's just such a deeply rich story that just fits him so well. The literal layers in which the dreams are shown is wonderful, and the characters move through the storyline fantastically. I remember a lot of people being confused while watching Inception, but I did not feel that way. In comparison to like films like Tenet and even to a small degree Dunkirk and Interstellar, which are much more bigger, a lot more crazier. Inception flows, I think, really well. That is a well-paced film that is carried so well by Nolan. He has his big cast with him, and sadly, while no one is elevated to like a McConaughey or Guy Pearce moment, everyone does a fun job, especially the side characters like Tom Hardy and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yet again, to go back to talking about what I did with Dunkirk, Hans Zimmer. Yeah, I made the joke in the beginning with the boing, but it's become this staple of film music. It's every trailer.
It's both how it's praised and also how scores are criticized in some ways because everyone steals from it.
Yeah, it's sad that it's become a joke because at the time it was such a cool thing. I remember that trailer grabbing me. Like, I have to see this movie.
The score is what blows you away from the get-go. You hear the music, you're like, what is this film? And then all of a sudden you realize, DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, Christopher Nolan. You get so intrigued on a movie that really tried to be under wraps about what it's about until right up to when it released. And that's when they dropped a larger scoped trailer of like the plot because they didn't want to polarize people.
The mysticism of that film still carries over. We're still trying to get that high of that Nolan mysticism because when that came out, when we first saw the trailer, we see the street folding over DiCaprio and Elliot Page, and you're just like, what is this? What are you trying to sell me? No, I was sold from the get-go, but like you said, it's such a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. But it's just perfect in every way for what it needs to be.
Absolutely.
Like I said, if there's no real fault here, because at least everyone in the crew is having a great time. The whole cast is great. The audio's fine, which is a blessing.
Oh my gosh, what?
It's a beautiful sounding film. Nolan using that big budget to do practical effects, which is probably the most beloved Nolan scene in his whole filmography. Maybe?
Yeah, and
what would you say?
And I mentioned, I think, to you, the scene that it is like, in my opinion, when you look at cinema as a history, it's one of the most recognizable, one of the most iconic scenes visually in film in modern history.
Yeah, the hallway fight scene, in case you don't know what we're talking about. Because that should have been the first thing that came to your mind anyways.
Obviously.
Yeah, the hallway fight scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the fact that it was actually done in a rotating room is... When you want to make films, or when I daydream about making films, that's what you want to do. I want to be able to say, I bought a room and had it turning and have Joseph Gordon-Levitt looking handsome as hell run around fighting a guy. It's utterly insane. And I remember watching the movie just like hands just up to my head like, what? Are you kidding me? This isn't CG.
And it sends shivers down your spine. Every time I see it, when you see it in the trailer, that's what I was just like, I don't know what this is and I need to see it. But then to see it in real time, in the film, that use of the rack camera going forward as and Joseph Gordon-Levitt runs on screen, running off the wall to the floor to the ceiling as it continually rotates. That alone should have guaranteed Nolan the director nomination.
Absolutely.
That use of space and how to construct a scene while helping you visualize that as obviously it is encompassing above that dream level in the first dream level where the van is flipping over and over down a hill. That's why the room rotates. That specific use of editing, that use of Nolan knowing exactly how he wanted to tell the story, there's just nothing wrong with his direction. There really isn't. Like we said, there could be an issue with writing, like you mentioned before. Some characters don't get their due. Elliot Page, unfortunately, is relegated to exposition character.
Like walking exposition.
That's the joke, But to be fair, Elliot's performance is really good too. It is, but they are necessary to get the information to the audience, and Elliot is very committed to the performance, and so it works. I don't judge them for that performance, and I don't judge Nolan for doing it, because unlike Tenet, this is the use of exposition for confusing things that is necessary and works.
Almost everyone has seen Inception, and it's just such a great film, and we were talking about how The Prestige has such a great ending. Inception's ending is one of the most famous ending now of all film.
I think it's one of the best bases for the conversation at the end of a film. The idea of what is the ending, how do you interpret it, and that was Nolan's point.
Yeah, and that was one of the most fun aspects. So the movie's already amazing, but we come out of the movie and it's like, what did you think? Do you think, was it a dream? Is it not a dream? And it's still being discussed this day. We're at the point where people did physics to see if the top was going to topple over. I think people love it. And it was like, guys, it doesn't matter what physics says. It's a movie. But I love that movie. I really do. It blows my mind. It came out 2010.
A decade ago.
Yeah, a decade ago.
We're going to die at the end of this video.
Yeah. So my number 2 is Interstellar. You mentioned earlier, and I got to give you credit because you know me so well. He's like, it's like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I absolutely love 2001: A Space Odyssey, so the bias is there. Interstellar for me, the grand giant space scope that is Interstellar is just so beautiful to me. I'm a sucker for the deep, rich stories of needing to go out to space to do whatever it takes for humanity to live. It's such a trope that I enjoy. And Nolan, yet again, taking all that money, taking all that budget, and just doing the utmost with it. Already 2001: A Space Odyssey, Solaris, and other space films already hit such high points that almost feel impossible to reach. And I don't think Interstellar reaches it. But Christopher Nolan put a lot of heart and dedication to this film. The science and math that went behind trying to make everything be as realistic as possible, on top of the fact that a lot of things was built on set. The robots, one of the most unique design robots ever put to film, are actual real moving things. And I'm just blown away by that concept. Inception is wonderful in all facets, and he tries to one-up it in Interstellar. And while not everything meets, some things do get elevated, and that's where a lot of that love comes from. McConaughey's performance helps elevate that film to another level.
Absolutely.
While a lot of characters feel 2D, McConaughey sells his performance so well. He gives such a great performance. And all the supporting cast also do a fine job. I know most people really critique Anne Hathaway and, of course, the monologue of love scene. And I get it for some people. I truly do. I do. But it works for me. I get what Nolan's going for.
It's poetry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the idea. Everything is so hard science, and that's what's fascinatingly convicting about it. But Hathaway giving some heart to something so very, very mechanical.
Yeah.
It needs to happen.
Yeah.
I get that.
It's the human element to the hard maths and science at hand. So I'm okay with it. It's a little small, it's a little cheesy, but yet again, it just worked out so well for me. Everything does. And the big, third act, of going into the black hole, it's out there, and a lot of people didn't like it, but I'm just a sucker for that kind of stuff. I just think it was so beautifully handled. We don't know that a fourth dimension or going to a black hole does. We have rough ideas. So of course it's going to be crazy. Of course it's going to be a little weird, and it ties back into the love of his family, which I think is just immensely touching. Yeah. And another thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about, we've been talking about twists and turns in this movie, the mid-act twist of a certain actor appearing. Yeah. It was one of the best theater moments ever. It caught me so off guard, and what that character does is insane. And it's a great moment in that film. There's just so much good twists and turns for such a long movie. And I was fully engaged from start to finish. So I have Interstellar near and dear to my heart. I'm a big space guy. I'm a big thinker kind of guy, so I really love it. And my favorite thing about watching this film when I saw it in theaters is that after the film was over, I was sitting there, I was a little emotional. My God, what a great experience. My father, 2 seats down from me, goes, "I'm going to need my son to explain this to me," and just yelled it to the whole theater. And because it is more convoluted than the other films. While films like Memento and Inception, I think, ride such a perfect line, Interstellar is definitely more like this, but the highs for me are very sentimental to me. Yeah,
so. It's hard to argue that too, and that's why I totally respect that too. Yeah.
You judge me. Just say you do.
I don't. Yeah. I like Interstellar. The reason my number 2 is Memento comes from, and similar to your love for Interstellar, it was like kind of the jumping off point for my true passionate pursuit of understanding and appreciating film. And what a film to start with. It's going to echo a couple of things that you said earlier, but it just needs to be reiterated. What a story. What a script. Of all the films for Nolan to be nominated for a screenplay for, this is the one. I say that, obviously, I mentioned that, The Prestige is probably Nolan's best screenplay, I think, because I think it embodies both the mystery and the characters. Memento is such an excellent use of time, an excellent use of narration, an excellent use of exposition and focused character direction that unquestionably it makes sense why the Academy found it so charming, so engaging, and so referential in a lot of other directors like Tarantino, who did, Pulp Fiction and things like that. But it stands alone as such a strong effort to tell mystery in such a uniquely minimalistic setting, focused on one specific character with about 2 to 3 supporting actors. Carrie-Anne Moss is wonderfully mysterious. Joe Pantoliano is fantastic as the seedy, do we trust him or not, kind of private eye character. Yeah. These characters are wonderfully lived in. They're wonderfully brought to life. They're greatly casted. The casting director did such a great job, especially with Joe and Carrie's performances. Also, Nolan's use of black and white to color to help the audience guide themselves in past to present. And I think that's what helps this film, it helps the audience follow along really well. It fascinated me when I first saw it. I couldn't get enough of such a simple story. It's a close to my heart kind of film because it really catapulted my love of film. And so, number 2 for me.
And it makes me excited too that hopefully one day he will go back to a small story like Memento.
Yeah.
You know, something of that level.
Yes.
You know, for your sake, but everybody else, I think maybe it's time to trim that gigantic blockbuster. Maybe just try a small, fun story.
We all look forward to the day when Nolan decides to like venture into something a little bit more intimate, not necessarily personal, just something smaller that like really helps us be captivated once again by him. Yeah.
Please don't. Just one more try, baby. Give it to me. Just try it one more time.
And our number 1 film, obviously it's easy to say. I mean, you know, as much as it's cheesy, and I know you guys all know it, and it's the one that everyone picks, The Dark Knight. Before we loved film, you know, we bought comics when we were kids. We fell in love with fictional characters, superheroes doing complex things. It embodies the tropes and the cliches, but also all of the optimism, all of the structure that we love in comic books so well, and yet in classic Nolan fashion, it grounds it in such a believable way. It tells a large scope story in complexity, and yet, you know, easy to follow along with. Completely every scene, and it delivers every single time, from moments that obviously include Heath Ledger to more intimate moments with Christian Bale, to, for me, one of my favorite scenes is the scene with Roberts when he's taken out of the club. You know, when he says, if you want to intimidate me, you know, you're gonna have to pick a higher spot. Fall won't kill me. Batman's response? I'm counting on it. Batman throws him off of a roof and breaks his legs. And it's one of the most simplistically intense moments of just like, you get the character, Christopher Nolan. We see the huge missteps with people like Zack Snyder, and you see the inspirationally commendable efforts of Tim Burton and even Joel Schumacher, you know, hamming it up. They're not great films, people. They're not even necessarily good, but we all know what Schumacher was going for with Batman. But this Nolan film, the embodiment of who Batman is so fully realized in such a way in complexities.
It's perfect.
Yep.
In terms of the modern comic book character, it's the perfect encapsulation of it. Nothing has touched The Dark Knight, and it has run since, 2008 till now.
Yeah.
It is still as beloved as the day it came out. We still have people talking about it. And that goes to show that Christopher Nolan, like you said, he got the character. Those lines, those moments is the perfect representation of the character. It really helps, too, that he's a man that knows how to bounce between the small moments like that, the big action sequences, to the best scene in the movie, in my opinion, the interrogation scene.
Unquestionably.
It's just the perfect acting class for both Bale and Ledger, but also the perfect sum up of what Joker and Batman is, something that has failed so much in the past of trying to get both these characters right. Nolan does right from the get-go in his first try.
He really wanted to take the time to allow the audience to understand the pathos of a character like Batman, so not to be bogged down by such a large villain that takes away from the hero, that he was faithful to himself in knowing that, like, you know, I have other stories I'd like to tell, but I want to originate it first so that the next film, I challenge the hero, that I don't have to compromise that fight with trying to help the audience understand the hero, because we get him, and all we do is see him being pushed to the edge, the razor's edge, the conviction of how much can I hold to my beliefs? How much can I stay Batman and keep my identity to protect the ones I love and keeping other people safe? The conversation is so fleshed out, and it feels so good. All that being said, for the quality of the film, Heath Ledger, you know, when he passed away, it's a huge loss. But what a character to leave us.
And that's the crazy thing about it. You know, it's been a long time, but it still feels like almost yesterday, because the performance of Joker has now become timeless. It's just one of the best performances put to screen for a villain.
Yep.
You know, every time someone gets to play Joker, it's always a big spectacle of who, but Heath Ledger just got it to a T.
Yeah.
And people are still doing that impression 12 years later. He has cemented himself in that performance, and I miss him so dearly of what could have been. But for what he gave us, what a way to really cement just how amazing that actor is. And that helps elevate that film to that next level. We're talking about how Batman Begins is good all the way through. Dark Knight is able to take that next step up because of Heath Ledger, because he takes one of the best performances of the decade, of all time in terms of villainy, and elevate a comic book movie to something way more. No one looks at The Dark Knight and just goes, oh, it's just a fun, dumb movie. No, it's The Dark Knight. It's a masterpiece of action.
Absolutely.
And everything that Christopher Nolan does well is put perfectly into this film. And on top of it, the Academy If it wasn't for this film, we wouldn't have 10 nominees.
Yep, and a lot of people feel a little differently about that.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the fact that we've expanded to 10. I think the mayor and I both agree that like the inclusion of 10 allows for a much more well-represented qualification of what great films are. With The Dark Knight's omission from picture and yet its nominations, including obviously Heath Ledger's posthumously awarded Oscar for supporting actor, it made the Academy have to take notice. As we finally got our first comic book nomination with Black Panther a couple of years ago. Yeah. But The Dark Knight was the film that had made the Academy have to take notice. We are not representing not just a fan base, not just an audience of people that come devotedly to these films, but a genre. He really was devoted to the idea of just like, I see so much humanity in a character like this, and to ground it allows the audience to truly get the embodiment of an enemy, of a villain, of darkness, and obviously of the theme of the film, of chaos. He does not have a name or an origin, and that in and of itself is the embodiment of the things we don't understand in life. Sickness, plagues, hurricanes, wars, genocides. The embodiment of that character helps people understand. It scares me, it angers me, and I don't understand it. That's the Joker, people. So when you watch The Dark Knight, take solace in the concept that this film addresses that unattainable construct of what we fear, and it's tackled so well, not just by Nolan, but by the performances around it.
It's been such a defining moment for superheroes and action films as a whole. We had the Dawn of Superman, we had Spider-Man, X-Men, all these steps, but Dark Knight has been just the one that cannot be knocked off the podium for the best. It made people wake up and realize that comic book characters can be taken seriously and doesn't have to always just be a cheesy fun time. There's something more to this, and Christopher Nolan showed it while also having an extreme blast while doing it and making it such a fun thrill ride. Yeah. It is perfect in every aspect, and I know everybody that's cinephile is sick of hearing about The Dark Knight, but it's just the truth. Yeah. It is just a fantastic film, and is the pinnacle for superhero and launched Nolan to that upper echelon. So that concludes our list, our wrap-up of all 11 films from Christopher Nolan. While we have a lot of love for the director, there are some things here and there that we're not huge fans of, but in the end, Nolan has become one of the most beloved and cherished directors in all modern cinema.
I think in the end, he is a voice that encapsulates the 21st century of how we tell stories, how we're challenging a structure that we've become so accustomed to in the 20th century as we ventured in from all the different types of movies, and only, like you said earlier, in only just 10 years, giving us such a varying amount of films. There's an unquestionable talent and skill and aspiration for a director that is passionately wanting to tell stories in unique and different ways. With what you said, there is room for improvement. We really, really appreciate and respect his work. But with that being said, there is a huge issue of his tropes. His screenwriting is something that leaves much to be desired in a lot of cases. His use of editing and time jumps is something he leans too much into. As you noted on the list, most of the things we find to be his top films are the ones that don't even cater to them. Those are the ones that we find more endearing and more palatable to larger audiences. Christopher Nolan, I think, has said before that he wants to make movies for the popcorn audience. He wants to make a movie for the big screen. That means he wants a movie for audiences. We're not talking, Ingmar Bergman. This is a man who dreams up ideas and is, I want to share this with millions of people. I want to take them on a ride. The bigger, more topical thing is the sound issues. As much as Nolan has a love and appreciation for his score and the sound effects, he does it at the detriment of dialogue. And that's a huge issue that unfortunately he needs to address because, we've experienced Tenet, recently, and we found ourselves walking out judgmental, and that's something we don't want to do because it's a technical thing. We love you, Nolan. For our watchers here, our movie fans,
please comment down below what you love, what you hated, what you think is right. Yeah, I know you're gonna put Dunkirk higher. It's okay, guys. Just get mad now. Get it out of the way. But if you want to hear more of us talking, you want to hear more fun ramblings, please make love to that like and subscribe button down below. We're gonna have plenty of things to talk about. We got lists, we got Oscars, we got Criterion, we got Nolan love, got a little bit of Nolan hate. We got a little bit of everything there. But please come back. Thank you for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.